a major diplomatic development. Jordan has announced it will recall its ambassador to Israel. The government in Amman also says Israel's ambassador cannot return to Jordan. Well, that announcement comes as the Israeli military says its soldiers are at the gates of Gaza City. This is the deepest incursion since Israel withdrew from Gaza in 2005. Let's find out more with Alan Fisher, who's in occupied East Jerusalem for us. So the Israelis claiming, Alan, that they're closing in on Gaza City. What more are you hearing about this?
Well, it's a pretty significant development. They have moved past Jabalia, where the refugee camp is. The gates of Gaza, they're not actual gates, this is metaphorical, but they're just about 2 kilometres further on, and that would suggest that they're moving deeper and deeper into Gaza itself. A significant development announced by one of the commanders of one of the units inside Gaza. It comes as the Defence Minister has said recently, just in the last couple of hours, that they are making important achievements. They're aware that there have been 15 soldiers killed within the last 24 hours. Gallant acknowledged that, saying the price is being paid on our side. But the reaction from mainly the Israeli military is that they were aware there would be casualties, and this is just the price for the operation that is ongoing. We've certainly been hearing reports of significant fighting in Gaza. Face-to-face battles is how it's been described. Hamas has claimed they have ambushed a number of Israeli fighters in their vehicles. Of course, Al Jazeera has no way of independently confirming this, but it suggests that Israel is making progress further and further into the Gaza Strip, even if that progress is slightly slow.
Meanwhile, Jordan has recalled its ambassador to Israel. Just how significant of a move is this, Alan?
Well, of course, we've been seeing diplomatic developments like this over the last 24, 48 hours or so. But this is important. This is Jordan. This is one of Israel's neighbours, one of the few Arab countries to have those diplomatic relations. Their ambassador isn't currently in the country. He's been told he won't be going back. Israel's ambassador left Jordan, came back to Israel because of security concerns. He has been told by the Jordanians that he can't return for the time being. That is pretty significant, but it follows the moves by Bolivia on Tuesday that cut all diplomatic ties. And of course, Chile and Colombia also withdrew their ambassadors from Israel. It's important. It's diplomatically showing that you are upset, you're angry at what Israel is doing, but it would much more impact if it was one of the major European countries, if it was Britain, France, or perhaps even the United States that took this. So on the ground, it's not going to change much, and certainly won't change what Israel is doing in Gaza. You've heard from Benjamin Netanyahu a couple of times over the last few days. He said there is no question of a ceasefire. Diplomatic pressure like this isn't going to change that stance.
Alan Fisher in occupied East Jerusalem, thank you very much for that update. Well, let's find out more about the mood in Israel as this war rages on and the ground incursion continues, and speak to Gil Hoffman, who's an Israeli political analyst and a former political correspondent, chief political correspondent at the Jerusalem Post. He's joining us from West Jerusalem. Thank you very much, Mr. Hoffman, for speaking to us. We've heard Israel confirming that 15 of its troops have been killed in Gaza in the last 24 hours or so. First of all, how is this playing out in Israel? How much pressure is it putting on the Netanyahu government?
It's not putting pressure on yet. The people of Israel are in a very somber mood with this word of 15 soldiers being lost, and we've been in that somber mood since that dreadful day on October 7th. That started 1,400 Israelis being murdered in the abominable way in which it was done, going from house to house and murdering innocent people. That mood hasn't changed. The people of Israel are extremely upset at their government for not preventing this from happening. Netanyahu is the leader, and until this war is done, he's in charge of making sure Hamas won't be able to attack Israelis again. The moment it's done, then there'll be tremendous pressure on Netanyahu to resign for his failure in preparing Israel for this, preparing the army for this, and not preventing the infiltrations of the terrorists from Gaza into Israel.
You say the mood hasn't changed in Israel, but what about the killing of Palestinian civilians? We saw more than 100 killed in a bombing at the Jabalia refugee camp yesterday and today. for what Israel says was one Hamas commander who was killed. How is Israel justifying those civilian deaths? And is that resonating at all with the Israeli public?
There were 50 terrorists that were in that tunnel, and they definitely blame Hamas for deciding to build a network, a whole city, really, of terror tunnels underneath where innocent Palestinian civilians live. This should not have been tolerated. Al Jazeera has encouraged the Hamas to use Palestinian civilians as human shields by blaming Israel.
But how is it that when Palestinian civilians are killed, that is collective punishment? When Palestinian civilians who have nothing to do with this war are killed, we have to talk about that. How can Israel justify killing these civilians in the name of eliminating Hamas?
Israel's army has done more than any army in the history of mankind to get civilians out of harm's way, from text messages and flyers and everything, and begging them to move southward out of harm's way, while the Hamas keeps on trying to insist on using them as human shields, blocking them from leaving.
Of course, they will deny that, and we have no proof of that. I just want to focus a bit more about the mood in Israel and the political mood, the war cabinet that Prime Minister Netanyahu has put together. How do Israelis view the way he's managed this, especially when we hear that some of the captives were killed in the bombing yesterday on the Jabalia refugee camp? What do Israelis make of this war cabinet and how it's managing this conflict?
We have no confirmation on any captives being killed, and we definitely don't believe whatever is put out by Hamas, and neither should the world media.
Right.
The cabinet hasn't Benny Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot, two former chiefs of the IDF, from the National Unity Party. They're there together with Netanyahu, so really representing all but a fringe of Israeli society. And while the mood against Netanyahu is very bitter and vengeful, there is an understanding that this is what we're stuck with, and it's up to them to make sure that there won't be more infiltrations and rocket attacks and all the terrible things that Hamas has done that has murdered too many Jews, Christians, and Muslims in Israel. The amount of
and at the same time, Israel is also killing hundreds and hundreds of Palestinians. Mr. Hoffman, we're going to leave it there, unfortunately. We'll just leave it there because you say that why should we believe Hamas? But again, I could tell you, why should the world believe Israel's claims only when journalists even aren't being allowed into Gaza to report on what's happening there? Gil Hoffman, thank you very much for joining us on Al Jazeera.